Good afternoon, everyone. Maersk Container Line plans to send a ship through the Arctic. They have models showing at least part of the year it'll be free from ice. Wait, the middle of the century? Weren't we all told it'll be ice-free by 2009? NSIDC, Arctic ice extent, the highest since 2014. Ocean Cruising Club, 22 pleasure vessels affected by ice. Northwest Passage sea ice, that red dotted line is this year. The black line is the 1981 to 2010 average. Hey, we're above that. That's not making news. Also, warning from Canadian Coast Guard, heavier than normal ice conditions. Please do not take pleasure craft up there. They can't rescue you. They don't have enough icebreakers and they're overworked at the moment. And progressing deeper into the grand solar minimum, you're going to have to grow some of your own food. Microgreens, sprouts, or anything you can grow in your own local grow zone. TrueLeafMarket.com. The Adapt 2030 link is below in the description box, as well as the links to tonight's stories, images, and the Tri-Weekly podcast, Mini Ice Age Conversations, talking about the hurricane in the Atlantic absorbing a dust storm from Africa. Interestingly, the last week of August, headlines blaring across the planet, Maersk to send first container ship through the Arctic. They're planning to run what's called the Northern Sea Route. That's the red line I'll white out here for you on the map, Murmansk. They're also going to be originating from Vladivostok over in Russia. That's at the very edge of the red line, way over to where that peninsula sticks off there. That's where Vladivostok is, off of Russia there. Eastern Asia. Now, what's most interesting in the article is they say that their models predict the polar region will be ice-free for at least part of the year, as early as the middle of the century. And instantly, I just leaned back in my chair and said, wait a second. They've been telling us the Arctic would be ice-free by 2009, that there would be less than 1 million square kilometers, and we'd be swimming up there with beach parties and barbecues. That didn't work, so they pushed it back to 2013, 2015. Here we are, 2018, and the ice is gaining, and now they're saying, no, don't worry, it'll be middle of the century, but pay that CO2 tax and keep worrying. And I love how they use the possible language of thinning ice could open new paths for global trade, potentially saving companies. Yeah, that is a pipe dream as we enter this grand solar minimum. But again, Business Insider parroting the same. World's largest shipping company trialing the Arctic route, but they have the scary headline. It's a worrying side for the future of the planet. And with the bullet points here, Arctic sea ice hits record low for January. And I said, really? National Snow and Ice Data Center, otherwise known as NSIDC, says the extent is the highest it's been since 2014. So over the last 4 years, this is the highest and most ice there's been in the last 4 years. And even when we look at that black line, the top right box there, the black line is this year. Sea ice volume up to September 7th. Also, the thickness is much thicker than last year. Although that northern sea route does seem to be open for a sliver depending on where the wind is blowing. Northern Russia there seems to get choked off sometimes, and it's open sometimes, choked off again, open sometimes, so it's hit or miss. The article continues on, and what I find most fascinating is, since this was written in August 21st, 22nd, they said that they're going to start sending this liner through at the end of the month, which would be the end of August, but now there's even heavier sea ice concentration. Coming out of Vladivostok, okay, where are they going to go? You can see the Arctic sea ice volume even on August 23rd, well above the other years. That's why it's the most in 4 years at the minimum so far. And then we're getting these reports coming out of Ocean Cruising Club. Message forwarded by Victor Weidger indicates that at least 22 vessels are affected and several have turned back to Greenland due to a icebound blocked Northwest Passage. Now, you've been fed in the news this entire summer. Northwest Passage is open. Ships are going to roll through there. And it's been a nonstop barrage of this. Less sea ice, record low, and it's just not. This comes from NSIDC and Environment Canada, both showing the sea ice in the Northwest Passage. That red line is above the 1981 to 2010 average. So the 30-year average is eclipsed and over the 30-year average this year, but somehow that doesn't make news. That is incredible, and it's in the Northwest Passage of all places. Now, we have this warning from the Canadian Coast Guard stating, warning, due to heavier than normal ice conditions in the Canadian Arctic waters north of 70 north, Canadian Coast Guard recommends that pleasure craft do not navigate Beaufort Sea, Barrow, Peel Sound, Franklin Strait, Prince Regent, as these icebreakers are A, not enough to accompany all the vessels, and they cannot safely escort or rescue. They're so busy right now, they're being pushed to the limits of what they can do. And they even stated that if they cannot rescue you in the Northwest Passage, you're going to have to consider overstaying the entire winter in a safe haven in the Arctic. Corporate-controlled media keeps feeding us everything's melting. Here's the Canadian Coast Guard says, don't go there, too much ice, we can't rescue you, and you're going to have to stay up there the entire winter. Back to NSIDC, opening north of Greenland, they're talking about that one little tongue that was, I don't know, less than 100 miles wide, up there next to Greenland opening. But at the same time, they also say closed Northwest Passage. This is coming from multiple agencies across the planet. Substantial amounts of ice remain in the channels of the Canadian archipelago. Thus, the Northwest Passage is not open. And it was not open either without icebreaker escort this year. So when people tell you, oh, we're going to take pleasure cruises up there, ask them how many were turned back and how many actually made the voyage this year. Would it be 1/5 of 1/8 of 1% of vessels starting out actually made their headway through there? Yeah, that's such an ice-free summer. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. The smoke and mirrors continues in the corporate-controlled mainstream media to get you to still look to the right when everything's moving to the left. Steema.com/@Adapt2030.